Brewer, do you have any thing to say to get us started?
Yeah, so Kira has led the work that will be presented to you this evening with regards to budget planning. Again, this is number 2 in a series of 4 steps to officially adopt the 2021-22 school year budget. So Kira will outline, the budget components that the board's directed us to at our last meeting. And again, this is an ample opportunity to provide comments and feedback based on what you desire to see in the 21-22 school year budget. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Kira Acker.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Sorry about that. You see me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. See my presentation there?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So, as Marty said, we wanted to walk you through what we've been working on with the budget development. Kind of basing what we had talked about previously in our last work session, and using some of the information that we got from the legislature when they broke off at the end of April, end of March, for that, just to move forward to see how that actually impacts us. So I'm just going to walk you through, answer any questions that you have, make sure you're comfortable with what we've come up with. So in this slideshow we're going to go ahead and review the current year-end fund balance projections where I see us ending at the end of this year. Look at those enrollment projections, the budget projection overview. So just a little bit more of an explanation from where we started in our first session, where the money is coming from and how we're going to work to balance that budget based on the information that we talked about with using those ESSER funds, the ESSER 2 and 3 funds, to help offset the low enrollment numbers if enrollment doesn't come in. So here, looking at my projection, the fund balance projection based on April, as of April, figuring, barring anything really happening that we're not expecting, I'm figuring about a $500,000 decrease to the fund balance. You can see we're looking about a $4.2, possibly $4.3 million fund balance at the end of this year. So really, just to remind you what we, going through this school year, we had to take some pretty big drastic measures to be able to balance the budget, because we, with our enrollment coming in at 250 at the beginning of the school year, and it's kind of eked its way back up, but below budget. So we had to really find ways to offset that decrease in enrollment. So we, really tightened our belt with expenses. We didn't fill positions. We'd actually already eliminated it based on attrition, but we had, para positions that we didn't fill, and we're just really creative with some of our teaching positions, and of course, CView changed the scope a lot. So we also were able to offset when we received federal money from the ESSER 1 funds. We were able to use those to not only help with expenses from ESSER, but also to turn in for unrealized, it's enrollment stabilization, unrealized revenue. So we, using those funds, were able to almost balance. So one of the issues that, what we weren't expecting was transportation. So transportation still was about that $500,000 off in revenue. So they were basing it off of ridership, which we've also always received our allocations from transportation off of ridership. So that piece they weren't able to do. They did have a hardship allocation that's just come this month, but we're still about, it's like 432,000 off from what we normally would have had. So again, we would have had that balanced budget, but that transportation just didn't come in. So
Kira, is that from the state?
yes, the transportation is from the state. When I
And
refer
why
to the,
didn't it come in?
well, they based their transportation budget off of the ridership. And so because our kids weren't riding the bus and buses weren't rolling, then they weren't able to, sorry, my dog's behind me. They weren't able to, we weren't able to receive the kind of funds that we would normally receive based on the students that were on the bus. They also didn't change the funding based, they left that funding structure in place. So, oftentimes you'd think that they would change the structure and then just provide provide those funds because the kids aren't on the bus. But they didn't do that. They kind of sat on it and waited until just this last month to tell us how much we'd actually be receiving. And so I don't know if they reallocated funds at the state level or how that worked, but they are guaranteeing us, and I'll talk about this a little bit more, they're guaranteeing us next year at least what we've made in, or what was allocated to us in 1920. So we should be receiving at least 1.6 million next year. So we can count on that money, and that's actually in the law. So they can't change it and base it off of ridership. So
Okay, thank you.
of course. So here's the enrollment that we talked about. We've been looking at the last few weeks, have been looking at May's numbers. So you see May there on the left-hand side. So this is actual FTE by grade and by school. So school's up in the top, and then it breaks it down by grade. You can see CView over there on the left, and then the very bottom, these are the totals for all of our schools. So, the trick has been to really figure out where all of these students in CView are going.
Mm-hmm.
We've done surveys. We've talked to they've called. When I say we, I have not called families, but I've seen the spreadsheet. There's notes by every single family reaching out. What are your plans? What do you think you're going to do? Some of them are registering. Some of them have confirmed. I'm, going back to brick and mortar. I'm going back to school, or I'm just not sure yet. So, coming up with a plan that's reasonable, but then conservative too, of how many of those students are going to go over back into the building. So on the right here, you can see my projections. I just figured a round number of 10 kids per building in the new transitional kindergarten program. I think that's going to grow as families understand what the program's about and, really feel comfortable with having their kids go to school again, getting them enrolled. We've had kids slowly come into the program. It's hard to sell a new program when you haven't been in school. So I think that families are starting to understand what's available. Kindergarten, I just took a round number. That's an average of what we'd have district-wide, because it was really up and down at each building. And so we'd need to, if we have an overflow at one school, we'll have to balance. I know Jefferson and Franklin were kind of dealing with that. So for projection purposes, I just used 38 across all buildings. And again,
we're not having transitional at Jefferson?
Nope, we don't have a transitional program there.
And
So
why
really
that is, we don't have any space available at Jefferson Elementary School, a room available for the transitional K.
Thanks, Marty.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Have you reached out and talked to kids and parents about the CVU enrollment? Is that pretty accurate projection, you think?
Yes. So yeah, so Cindy's team they've called, and actually principals out in the buildings too. I've talked to a lot of families. We've been keeping that spreadsheet that really tracks what people are doing so far, or what they've indicated that they're going to do. If they indicated that they were going to go back to school, or if they indicated they were going to stay at CVU if we were in hybrid, then I actually put them in their original brick and mortar school, because right now we're not projecting to be in hybrid. So they are in brick and mortar if families indicated. And there's a lot of families that indicated they don't know, and if they're in hybrid, they'll be at CVU. So I was planning for them to be back in brick and mortar. I also, just for that balance, I took the difference of what our FTE looked like in May, and where we were pre-COVID, and then I increased that by 10% at each building. So I kind of feel like that was going to capture those families that have just not been in the system. So if they were homeschooled, if they did go, there's just some of those families we just don't know where they're at. If they're out there and their kids are just home and they're not coming to school, I felt like we needed to capture some of those. So I did that increase at each building.
Okay.
So here you can see that 32-35 projection that you guys recommended for next year. Part of that, what's included in that is the CTE enrollment. This is just a little bit higher. We figure when kids are actually in school, there's more, the elective classes will go up. Kids coming over from CVU, we have some CTE programs at CVU, but those CTE kids that are going to the high school, I think will increase our CTE enrollment. So I was very conservative with that 180 and 50 at the middle school, but it does increase it a little bit. SPED is those average for the tier 1 and tier 2 SPED numbers. That's just an average from last year, and so maybe 1 or 2 higher next year, but those are pretty conservative numbers. You have any other questions about the projections? Okay. So, when we talked about the loss of enrollment, I just wanted to make sure everyone understood really with BEA what that really means with our allocations and with revenue, and how that impacts our district. So in 1920, pre-COVID here, we have an average, we left school in 2020 at 3520. So we had an average of 3,520 students. This year we've averaged 3279. So that's a difference of that 240 FTE, 241 FTE. So when they break down what is allocated to us by FTE for teachers. So it's that prototypical model we've talked about lots of times. But I wanted you to just see the difference in what we're being funded for, with an average of 3520 and an average of 3279. So you can see just for principals even, we were funded for 6.1 elementary principals here. This year, we're only being funded for 4. So one of our elementary principals is not paid for. And that's just the prototypical model. That's how they've been allocating it for years. Middle school, we were at 1.6, now we're at 1.1, and high school 2.4 to 1.8. So you can kind of see how that, just classroom teachers, it's a total of 27 less teachers that are being paid for by the state, with a difference of 241 FTE. So, it's very drastic. We always know that they have not funded us where they need to with counselors. We know that we've paid for additional counselors in our building, but office support, and these are people, not FTE. It's a little different with for office support, because of a full FTE is 7.5 hours a day, and 7.5 to 8 hours a day, and our staff they don't all work that long. So it's it's this, I just, out of ease, I just sort of rounded and counted people, not FTE. So essentially the difference in what we were funded before is a total of 4.9 FTE. So that's where we're being really careful moving forward when people retire, to make sure that those positions can be absorbed or reworked and looked at a different way.
And so I want to speak to this real quickly, Kara. So we can see the impact of the loss of about 200 and, ends up being 250 students or so. And without the ESSER funds, and I was asked this by Representative Derek Kilmer, how important the ESSER funds were to our district. Without the ESSER funds, we could even argue with the ESSER funds, we're in a state of emergency. You can see how drastic of an impact a loss of 235 to 250 students mean to our school district. So this is an important slide to tell the story around, yes, we do have ESSER funds in the form of ESSER 2 and 3, but that's temporary money. We have that money through the end of the 22-23 school year.
That's right. We have until September 2023 right now to spend all of our ESSER 3 up to our ESSER $3. So we haven't received any kind of notification from the state yet. We just turned in our reopening plan, which was due June 1st. And so with that, I'm expecting to see the new package, the ESSER 3 package, come through. So we'll get exactly what we can spend that on. We're comfortable that most of it will be similar to ESSER 2. There might be a few changes here and there, but moving forward with that plan, that's just wanted you to understand, what we're dealing with on that. So in looking with the budget development, I just kind of used these two different slides to maybe explain a little bit about the how those ESSER 2 and 3 funds are going to offset the $2.5 million in enrollment that we're projecting not to receive. So any student that comes in, any FTE that comes in over that 3235 will come off that 2.5 million. So that's that, of course, that's what we're hoping for. But we built a balanced budget, and the amount of staffing that we have and our expenses that we have is built on a budget for 3520. I mean, that's really how we have to look at it. So unless we're going to completely riff another $2.5 million, we need to offset it with these funds. And those, the positions that we have and that we're filling through, if someone retires or if we need to fund these positions, those are important positions to have, and that we can use those, we can use those funds to subsidize those until the ESSER funds come back through, or I'm sorry, until enrollment comes back. So here, we'll be ending this end of year general fund revenues at the end of 2021. That's that 51.3 million. Those are the revenues that we will have received by the end of the year, come this August. So adding an additional 3.5 of ESSER 2 funds, which will be the difference of what we don't spend through the end of this year, and then planning on spending 5 million, which is half of our allocated ESSER $3. and then decreasing the state revenue in apportionment of the 2.5. And then there's that transportation allocation where because they're guaranteeing the state funds for transportation, we can add back in that $500,000 that you saw in the original fund balance projection that we're off from being able to balance this year, have a balanced budget. And then we do receive a little bit of additional from the projections, 118,000 based on our enrollment for CTE. I think that will go up a little bit because we have dropped this year. So that's a total of 57.9 million for the year. And then if you go on to the other side, over for projections for expenditures, we're gonna planning on spending 51.8 million. So just with normal step and column increases and a percentage IPD for you know, the cost of living increase, the IPD across the district at 2%, we're looking at about $1.2 million. So that is decreasing some of the positions that we're not filling. So there's some we know we're not filling next year based on attrition. So we'll have an additional cost on top of that, those expenses that we had this year of 1.2 million. So what we also have to realize is the ESSER $3, we have to spend those to receive them. So that 5 million, that's an additional expense that we have, will incur. Also with CTE, we'll have additional, because we have to show that we're spending what we're receiving, the allocation that we're receiving, or they'll take it back. We will have an additional $100,000 in that program. So all of that, you know, the additions and the subtractions, I'm trying to, you know, balance. I'm still estimating a little bit of a decrease to the fund balance of just under 200,000, which will give us a fund balance of 4 million at the end of next year. Is there any questions about this slide?
I have a question. What can we spend ESSER 3 money on, Marty?
So as Kira referenced, you know, the official guidance from OSBI has not come out just yet around ESSER 3 expenses. We anticipate that to be very similar to the ESSER 2 expenses, or the ESSER 2 expenditures. I'm sorry, not expenses. So, you know, pieces around supporting social emotional health of students, supporting recovering academic learning loss of students. Those are two of the big, you know, line items around the intent of the ESSER 2 and the ESSER 3 funds. So social emotional health and also academic recovery are the two areas where, you know, you're going to spend most of your ESSER 2 and $3. Kira, do you want to add anything to, or I'm sorry, go ahead.
If can we spend it, so we'll spend it on like contract staff for a year at a time because the money is not permanent?
Correct.
If you hired some assistant counselors or some more counselors or paras or whatever it's going to take for the learning plan, those things are just going to have to go by the year, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
And these are, you know, this is short-term revenue, short-term expenditures that we will be very strategic in the allocation of the expectation. This is not long-term. These are short-term investments. So generally speaking, you know, once the dust settles in August and we have a better indication of what our enrollment's going to look like, you know, my vision for the ESSER $3 is to, you know, go to each building leader and have them take the equity plan or the equity template planning document that they shared with you or we shared with you at our last meeting, and, you know, have them work with their educational teams within their building and come up with plans around You have additional resources in ESSER 3 funds. How are you going to address the social emotional needs of students, and how are you going to address the learning loss of students? And so building teams can come up with innovative plans on what they can do to help recover that loss. And, we'll know exactly, and Kara referenced it earlier, it really depends on what our enrollment does. My hope is the board gave us direction that we go with, the 3235, which is the low mark, that is no lower than that. And if it's not, we're going to have significant ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 funds, ESSER 3 primarily, funds to allocate to buildings to recover learning loss as well as social emotional needs. If, and Kara did reference this, if our enrollment comes back and we use less ESSER 2 funds to, address that apportionment loss of $2.5 million, there will even be more money for us to address the learning loss and social emotional needs of students. So I think the board has provided some good guidance here around let's budget for the low mark and, hope that that's, worst case scenario, and anything above that applies additional revenue for us to be able to sustain what we have in staffing, but number two, address learning loss and social emotional needs.
So are you saying then that for next school year, or this coming one, 21-22 and 22-23, at the end of 23, the ESSER funds go away?
Correct. We will have needed to spent all of the ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 funds in September of 2023.
Okay, and so is that saying then, is what the federal government's saying that they're giving us 2 years to take care of the learning loss from the pandemic? Is that basically what's going on?
I don't know if that's, I don't know. I mean, I can't answer that. I don't know if that's the vision that the federal government has outlined for us, but that's the spending of the ESSER funds is expected by then. I think as an educator, we're going to be dealing with learning loss for up to
Years.
3 to 5 years.
Yeah, for years. And so
and
we
so
need to make it clear to our legislators, including Derek, that if they think this can be taken care of in 2 years, they've got another thing coming.
Yep.
Or you can put it in a nicer way than that, but
yeah. And I think if our enrollment recovers like I anticipate it will to some degree, I don't think we're going to get back to pre-pandemic, but if it does recover, it will give us, more money to address the learning loss issue. But that really doesn't answer your question. More money within a 2-year period of time.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, so using those ESSER funds, those ESSER 2 funds, we're going to be able to code contracts that will cover any kind of learning loss programming. A lot of we'll have additional contracts, not from what we're, I'm sorry, let me back up. So anything that is supporting the social emotional learning in schools currently, programs that are doing that, or help, so counselors, nurses, that is what we can code those contracts to right now. So that right there, between nurses and counselors, we're at almost $2 million. So that's going to help offset that difference of that 2.5. So that's really that. And then the 5 million in ESSER will be used once we get to the fall to find additional resources per building, based on what the principals see and what they see with the kids and what those real needs are at this point. So that's
and I'm going to take it a step further. Principal and his or her leadership team. I think this is going to be really important that staff are engaged, one, know what the learning loss is in each independent building, but two, then what are the plans that are innovative in nature that will help our students recover.
Thank you.
So I always get a little ahead of myself and start talking about the next slides on the same slide. So this is really just these next few slides have it's just explaining what I've gone through already about the decrease and how the ESSER 3 will help supplement and help offset that along with the transportation. So this is just breaking down the revenues that I've already shared. And then also with the, just explaining those expenditures for what we're additional costs that we'll receive and how that's getting us to that $4 million fund balance at the end of next school year. Okay, so, these are just some of the items that we wanted to have you guys think about and talk about as we move through this discussion. Ask any questions. I have a few more things that I wanted to share, but just for consideration, as we talked about our enrollment and recommendations already, knowing that there is a 2% IPD cost of living in across the board for, if it wasn't already in a contract, that we're giving that 2% for all staff, planning on giving that. We've talked about the Chromebook, the 5-year replacement plan for Chromebooks. We've already started with the first section, and we've purchased those 400. We purchased 1,500 of those Chromebooks this year for a total of 400,000. Finding those learning loss initiatives, what's needed. Sure, that's not my. Those learning loss initiatives. That we've already been discussing. Another thing that we're talking about too is trying to increase what's offered at the high school and with CTE. We've had lots of requests for an athletic training program. Since I've been here, there's been quite a few, and I know that there was one with the Skill Center when the Skill Center was here, but it wasn't actually at the high school and it wasn't on campus. We've had lots of requests for that, and so any new programs that can drive kids and keep them on campus, keep them learning about new, keeping them interested, I think is really important. We're really making a conscious effort to find things that are going to keep those high school kids on campus. Changing the offerings, changing the culture, changing what's driving them to go to Running Start. And I think that as CTE, looking at CTE and what they're asking for is very helpful and could definitely help. The other piece is with funding for College of the Classroom. So I kind of wanted to share a little bit about this. I've been having quite a few conversations with counselors and actually teachers that teach College in the Classroom currently. So I've been learning. I've just been learning a lot about how those programs work and how it works with our funding. And I really think that funding College in the Classroom at the high school is going to help keep some kids going to Running Start. Keep in mind, I'm not saying that Running Start isn't a good program. I think Running Start for some kids is a great program. If they can get into it in the very beginning and they can actually get their AA and go on to college with their AA, it's a great program. But what we're finding is there's only about 5% of our kids that that actually go into Running Start complete that.
Right.
So
Well, this has been an issue for me since I've been on the board. I have a real problem with Running Start. I would like to know how many, it says here, many of which came back because they didn't receive the support they needed. If it's up here, it says we sent 200 students, and down here, the high school lost an average of 133 students to Running Start. Those numbers didn't gel with me. And also, are these the only courses that are taught in Running Start?
No, so these are two different programs. So Running Start is right. I'm sorry. The 200 students that we see on the next slide, that's actually, those are kids that stayed on campus and took College in the Classroom.
Oh, okay.
So
okay, and so the 133 went to Running Start.
Correct. Yes.
And it says many of which came back. How many came back because they didn't complete?
Um,
Of the 133, how many did not successfully do what they were supposed to do for Running Start?
I don't have that number. I would need to ask and get that hard number from, I probably, I would
Who would know that?
Debbie Lane might know that. We would know of the kids that came back. The college might be able to tell me who graduated and who got their AA. I'd have to do some research to find that out.
So we pay for it and we don't even know that?
In talking with Lillian, we know that, and she estimated about 5% of the kids actually complete the program.
Well, I don't want an estimate. I want to know not percentage. I want to know numbers.
Okay.
If 133 started, did 95 come back to campus? And if so, how much money did we lose then? I mean, if they're coming back, we pay when they go. Is that correct?
Yes. So when they
We
enroll,
pay the college up front.
correct.
And they go out there and we don't know what they're doing.
We're supposed to know what they're doing. The counselors are supposed to keep track of them. And I'm sorry, there's an RCW that allows them to go to Running Start. It's 28A 600-310. And
Of
so
course.
I'm not taking that option away from students to go to Running Start. And I understand that some are not, but also here, it's a 2-year program. Not all kids do graduate in 2 years. I mean, you know, so they don't get their AA. But I would think that the counselors at the high school, I think, aren't we now divided by the counselors by every grade now? So the senior counselor should be able to tell us. And
Yeah, we
find out.
we can get all of that data. We're not prepared tonight to give all of that data, but we can most certainly get that for you, Director Long. Then the other side, Director Kelly, we are not advocating for taking away choice of students. We know by law we can't do that, nor would we want to. But really the proposal that we're bringing to the board tonight, the summary of it is, you know, if we're working on an equity policy right now, and we believe as a board of 5 and a superintendent included in that of 6, and it is our duty to provide equitable options to students within our system. When a child chooses to take a college in the high school class, he or she has to pay a fee to us on behalf of the university that they're attending. And quite frankly, many of our students cannot afford that. So they don't take a college in the high school class. So what tonight's proposal is, it's not about restricting access to any student that wants to go to Running Start. That's not what it's about. It's about providing an equitable playing field for students that want to take college in the high school courses because they want to stay at the high school, but take college level courses. And our district, you know, fund those courses for those students. And it is our belief that, you know, students may choose, that's their choice, not our choice. Students may choose to stay at the high school and take some of these classes that you see outlined here on campus because they count towards college credit as they transfer to post-secondary education. So for me, this is really about equitable access for students on our campus and not charging a fee to take a course at Port Angeles High School.
Thank you for
Hi,
that
it's
information.
Katie. Hi, it's Katie. Can you hear me?
Go, Katie.
Yes, Katie.
Hi. So the comparison that I'd like to see is really how we're doing with AP classes, because those are the ones that I'm feeling like are non-transferable, really hard to get credit. Colleges will only take a 5. If you get a 5 on test. You get a one shot. You study all semester, all year long, and then you get one shot to be able to pass it. So that my concern is about AP classes. The other thing you should know about college and college and high school courses and their credits is they don't transfer. So we have been informed that they do not transfer to Whitman College. So because you have to be in a classroom with at least 30% college students for them to accept it. So Running Start at that point is the only transferable credits. So I have had experience with AP, college and high school, and Running Start this year. And to be honest, the Running Start has been really successful. So that's just anecdotal information. But the cost is a problem. And the college and the high school still had a cost this year. So am I understanding that the cost goes away somehow because we're investing in it? Is that right? Did I miss that part?
The proposal for the board to consider is, yes, that the district would cover the cost of the college and the high school course.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so with a full-time Running Start student, the state allocates us about $8,100 a year for that student to go to the Running Start. If we're able to, have those students stay on campus and be full-time high school students, and even pay for all of them, pay for 3 classes of college in the classroom in a year, we're keeping that $8,100, and the difference of that is an additional $6,500, almost $6,600 that would stay at the district with paying for the college credits. So we're actually, by keeping them on campus, and it's their choice, of course, but there is that offset, that $8,100 does not flow directly to the college. It stays with us, and we're able to use that money to be able to pay for those fees if needed.
But
Okay.
I want to add to that. This in no way, this is not Peninsula College versus Port Angeles High School. That's not what this is about. This is, the choice still remains. But in assessing, why students are going to maybe Peninsula College, there's a lot of reasons. One of which is the cost. I can't take a college and the high school class because I can't have, I don't know, I'm not going to speak for anybody, but I can't afford it. And so if if a student is choosing to go to a post-secondary school because he or she wants to take a college level course, but maybe is not developmentally ready for that or not prepared for that, I think we're doing our student a disservice.
We
They would likely, and I'm not trying to make a generic statement here, but there's going to be some students that would likely prefer to stay on a high school campus. And this would give them an equitable opportunity to do that. That's what this is about. I do not want this to be framed as a Peninsula College versus Port Angeles High School. That's not what this is about. For me, this is about providing equity for students that want to stay on a high school campus. They get an opportunity to do that. Katie's comment, I agree. The AP courses, very, very difficult. It's a pass or a fail. And it's not, it's difficult on a lot of students. The college and the high school courses is not, the same around that pass fail concept. You can earn credit. you know, some of those credits are, and I can't speak to every college on whether or not they would accept each of those courses or any of those courses. But, you know, they come from state-run universities that are well-known: University of Washington, Eastern Washington University, Central Washington University. And there's a likelihood that some of those may transfer to another public college. I'm not, you know, I can't say who, and I can't say exactly. Now, what we cannot compete with is and I don't want to, when a child chooses to go to Running Start and finishes the package deal at Peninsula College of an AA degree, those credits transfer, all of them. And so, you know, if that's the agenda of a child and a family, we want to support that. But if it's the agenda to take a higher level course, you know, because I want to have a college credit on my transcript, you know, I'm advocating the board to consider waiving that fee so students have an opportunity to take that on our campus. Thank you, Sarah.
Excellent. I can just speak a little to the school, the college in the classroom. Yes, a lot of our private schools will not accept, they will not accept the college in the classroom. Your private schools, often they won't. What they do, interestingly enough, is, for example, all my kids took UW all the way up through UW calculus. We didn't end up paying for it because I knew they were going to private schools that weren't going to take it. But when my children got to their universities and took their math placement tests, they all got bumped into the next level of calculus there. So it did help, even though they didn't get the actual credit. So that it's not that it's not helpful. And I would say the vast majority of our students are going to a state school, a Washington state school. And these credits that they're getting at college, in high school, transfer over without an eye blink to in-state schools. And I would argue, I bet 80% of our kids are going to in-state schools. I really believe that PC is a good choice for a lot of people. I think we do a terrible job of vetting who goes to PC and communicating with their families that maybe this isn't a great choice for your child because, you know, your kid is averaging a D in their math classes. Why we think it's okay to throw them into a college level at PC, I don't think that's appropriate. Now, can I deny them? No, as Cindy said with the RCW, I can't. But I think we have done a really poor job of preparing kids for whether or not they're an appropriate candidate for Peninsula College. And AP, I think we should just get rid of AP in its entirety. I think we're paying AP teachers for a test for very few children. I think that they can be replaced very easily with UW in the classroom and Eastern Washington in the classroom. And those AP tests have just gotten more and more progressively difficult. And you can't transfer those credits over unless you get, like Katie was saying, a 3, 4, or 5 on them. It's not, I don't like the AP system. So with that, I will finish. Those were just my observations.
Marty, can we include the AP data too, since Sarah brought that up, of how many kids have passed and not? I know that's been an issue.
Yeah, we can work on that.
Yeah. And what I wrote in the chat is I think they have to pay for the exam, that we don't pay for that, because that's been a barrier too.
And it's very difficult, though, too, Cindy, to say what passing is, because Eastern Washington will take a 3 on the biology test, but Willamette University will only take a 5. It's so saying what is a passing grade is nearly impossible. We know a 1 is a fail, but other than that, you can find a university that'll take you down even to a 2. So that's why I think the AP system is personal opinion.
It would be great to get student feedback too on that. If they like it, don't like it, what's the pros and cons?
Oh, so the only other thing I want to say is that I would just fix the slide to say college in the classroom and Running Start. That way we don't talk about one versus the other. The other thing is that I'm fine with funding college in the high school. That would be totally cool. I think that I didn't understand exactly what was happening because I didn't understand the slide. But I really like the idea of more kids taking college in the high school. It's a great opportunity for them. The only other thing would just be to make sure that it's clear to the students that there's no guarantee that any of these hey, I'm not leaving, sorry. That any of these actual credits transfer. I just the clarity. It would be nice to see it be really clear to the kids about that. So.
Well, and when working with the counselors to learn more about the how these classes work and how the funding works, they talked about how a lot of the education needs to even start in middle school, which really surprised me that families get in there and they're like, well, my kid's taking Running Start, and they've decided when they get there that's going to be the path that they go on. So, educating them even earlier than when they get into high school, explaining how it all works, that I think that's key too. And that came right from the counselors. They really feel like they want to step that education up. And I used the word versus college in the classroom versus Running Start, mainly just to show the funding in between the two different programs, and that because we're allocated a specific amount for those for Running Start students, we're able to find that money. If they don't go to Running Start, that's what would pay for the fees. So it's not a huge cost to the district. It's not an additional expense. If that, so I use that terminology so that you could understand where the allocations are coming from. So.
And the way the Running Start works is we don't have a real number until, September. And so we staff our high school with bodies to meet the head count within the school. We try to estimate what will be going to Running Start. So that emphasizes Kira's point, like our staff's already there. Like we have the staff, and we typically, when there's when students go to Running Start, we end up being overstaffed at the high school in some capacity. So, but, to concur with what I've heard from Cindy, Sarah, and Katie, what we pay up front for every child that goes to Running Start. And for a lot of students, and we'll get this number to you, Sandy, for a lot of students, they make it work. But those that don't make it work, when a student starts to struggle and is a senior and needs to cross that line to graduate because he or she's failed a course, we clean that up every time. So those students on tomorrow night that graduate, there's a number of students that come back to us and we help recover those credits. And our staff, and I'm not saying this again to be critical of anyone. I'm saying this as a compliment. Like our high school staff, they work miracles for these students when they come back and they've failed the course. And we're getting a lot better at it. The high school counselors are doing a great job. They get a lot. They are tracking student performance, by way of the quarters at the college. And when there's a failure, they're reaching out. We can help. And so, our high school staff, they work miracles to help some, not all, a small percentage of students that fail a course there, that we help get them across that line and graduate them. And at that point in time, it's at, we're not even reimbursed for that work because that money is front funded to the college. So, and again, that's not a complaint, but our staff works really hard for doing the right thing. And that's always the right thing to do to get that child across the graduation line.
So Marty, when my daughter did Running Start, and she did not graduate with her AA, but you had to take the entrance exam to get into Running Start. So I'm sure we must be still doing the entrance exams. And I guess we just need to just pay more attention, I guess, to the grades and have a better relationship with Peninsula College or the colleges. Thank you.
Well, we have talked about this every year that I've been on the board, and this is year number 6. And I hadn't seen any difference. I haven't seen any numbers. I have no data. I really don't know how to make a decision about college in the classroom. I really would like to know more about it. And I would be glad to, if somebody would sit down with me, Kara, or a counselor or somebody, and let me know about it. And also Running Start. I just want to know how many people start and don't finish.
Okay.
That's all. That's all I want to know.
You'll
And then
get
I will
that.
be, I'll have some data to make some decisions. Right now, I can't make any decisions.
There's really no decision to be made about Running Start. It's school choice. If a child wants to go to Running
I
Start,
understand that.
they go
I
to
don't-
Running Start.
I understand that.
That-
I just think that if they had more, I'm thinking from a college professor standpoint,
Sure.
because I have seen kids come in, and just absolutely, they're 16 years old, 17 years old. They can't deal with it. They don't know, they're not developmentally ready for a college classroom. And I don't know how they test to get into Running Start. I don't know anything about it. So until I have that information, I'm not going to comment anymore.
I think that the decision that really maybe the direction that Kara and Superintendent Brewer are looking for is, do we pursue this idea? It's not about getting rid of Running Start, because clearly we're not going to do that. But do we want to, as a board, commit to funding college in the classroom? And that is going to have to work into our budget worksheet, how much money we're going to spend on college in the classroom. Am I reading that right, Kara? Is that kind of the idea at this point? Is that something we want to follow up on? Okay.
Well, let me
So-
ask this then, Sarah. If someone comes to the high school counselor and says, I want to go to Running Start, but I don't know whether I want to go to the campus of the Peninsula College campus, but I want to get some college credits or whatever. Is that the same as getting the $8,100 that we get for Running Start? Are you counting that money?
Well, no, that's what this is showing, is that we would save, what is it, $6,500 if they take those classes at our school. And if the
Correct.
only reason they're not taking them at our school is because they can't afford to take them at our school, then this would eliminate that cost barrier.
Yeah,
make
I
sense?
understand that, and I'm all for it, paying for it. That's not an issue. I just didn't know how many, for example, if 250 students or 300 students came to you and said, I want to go to Running Start, we're just going to automatically send 300 up there?
We do right now. Yeah, we don't stop them right now.
Well, and we can't stop them.
Right.
It's school choice.
So we get
Now, we can-
reimbursed for that money or not?
No, if it's a full-time Running Start student generates $8,100 that's sent to the district, and that money is then forwarded on to Peninsula College. That's for a full-time Running Start student. Many of our students are part-time. They take some classes there and some classes at Seaview, some classes at Port Angeles High School, maybe even Lincoln High School. That's Lakin. I think Lakin falls in that wheelhouse. So because we're a school choice state, a child, when they're an 11th grade student, can choose to go to Running Start. Now we can counsel them through that. Is this really a good choice? But push comes to shove, a family or a student say, I'm going, they're going to go.
It's 7 o'clock.
So
All right.
it doesn't matter how many students want to go, everybody gets to go. There is no admission standard at all.
Yes, there's a test.
There's a test.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll continue this later.
And we'll get you, Director Long, we'll get you all that information
Thank
that
you.
you have asked for.
Thank you. Time to start the meeting. Thank you, Kara.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your
Were you
time.
done here? Were you done?
Nope, that was my
I-
last, yeah, that was my last slide. So, we will have a budget presentation at the end of August. We will have the budget hearing and then adopt the budget in August. So we will.
So with board, the final comment I have tonight is if you have any additional more detailed conversations you want to have on the material tonight, reach out to me so Kira and I can meet with you and we can address all your considerations, please.
Okay.
All right.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Okay, so with that, we're running just 1 minute late. We are returning from, we've been in our budget work session. No action is taken in a work session, but it is recorded if somebody wants to go back and look at it. So with that, I'm going to bring us into our regularly scheduled board meeting. It is June 10th, 2021, and I'm going to ask Carmen Geyer to introduce us to our remote board meeting.
Wonderful. Thank you, President Methner. Hello and good evening. As the moderator of the Port Angeles School District remote board meeting, I would like to welcome you to the June 10th, 2021 Board of Directors board meeting via Zoom. This meeting is being presented remotely for all attendees. Items to be mentioned before we begin is that this meeting is open to the public and it is recorded. You can listen to all past board meetings by visiting Board Docs through our district website. If you have any questions that you would like shared with the Board of Directors, please email Jenny Wilson, the Executive Assistant to the Superintendent at jwilson@portangelesschools.org. There will also be a portion of the meeting reserved for community comments. Agenda items will be addressed as listed in the agenda. If you wish to share comments, please use the Q&A button located at the bottom of the Zoom conference window. Submit a brief summary of your non-agenda item or the correlating agenda item number along with your name and wait to be called on. When it is your turn to speak, your name will be called and your mic will be enabled. Before making your comments, please state your name and address. You'll have 3 minutes to speak, after which time your mic will be turned off. Video will not be enabled during your time. Accusations, foul language, or other verbal abuse will not be tolerated. If you do so, you will be asked to refrain from using such language. If you continue to use inappropriate language, your mic will be turned off. And if you have any concerns about individual district employees or specific complaints that require administrative response, please contact the Office of the Superintendent directly. Thank you, and back to you, Madam President.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, my computer didn't want to unmute. Okay, so that takes us to roll call. And my understanding is all board members are present. I believe Katie's still here.
Katie will be back in 30 minutes.
Okay, Katie will be back in 30 minutes. All right. So that takes us to the flag salute. So if you'll rise and join me. Okay, and ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
To the republic which is one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great, thank you. All right, so that takes us on to Director Kelly. Would you please lead us in acknowledgement of tribal lands?
We acknowledge that we are on the indigenous lands of Coast Salish people who have reserved treaty rights to this land, specifically the Clown tribes. We thank these caregivers of this land who have lived and continue to live here since time immemorial.
Thank you very much. That moves us on to agenda approval. How does the board feel about this agenda? Thumbs up, everything's cool? Okay. Terrific. That takes us on right onto consent agenda approval. The purpose of the consent agenda is to recognize expeditiously routine matters. At the request of any board member, a matter can be moved into the regular agenda. So with that, do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
Director Kelly makes a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Director Wright will second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So that is going to take us down to, come on, board correspondence. Do we have any board correspondence? Jenny?
No, there's no correspondence tonight.
All right. So that moves us right into 8.01, which is our technology report. Jared Blauser.
Hello and good evening. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to address the board this evening. I have a little agenda to go over here. I wrote a report that I posted for the board to read through board docs, and I don't want to regurgitate that entire report for you. So I just want to try and hit the highlights. And this is probably a great place to start. Could you let me know if you see that shared document? Good. So this year we started the technology department started with 5 people, and it was an extra load on us this year because we had a bunch of Chromebooks that we needed to get out to students at the beginning of school. We didn't have enough Chromebooks for every kid, and we borrowed some from some other school, and pulled as many of our devices as we could together and got them repaired as quickly as possible to get out to kids. And we started school with some of our kids using their own devices, and received some Chromebooks later in the year, which we'll talk about in a minute, that we're rushed to get set up to get out to kids. That was well done, and we got stuff in kids' hands to start school. So I feel like it was an equitable start for school. Everybody had an opportunity to participate in education, but it was a different way of educating than we had ever tried to support in the technology department. And there was a lot of new things that we had to deal with, connections from home, folks that didn't understand technology well enough to participate effectively. So we had some challenges there. We had in our department some changes over the year that was supported both by the board and by district administration. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to make those changes. They're highlighted here in my first bulleted list. We had a network support technician, Kurt Lorenzen. We changed his position to an IT systems lead technician. That position in the past, the network support technician, was specifically for managing our network infrastructure and not so much for capturing the server management. And Kurt is doing both of those jobs since we let some employees go, retired some employees a few years back, 2 years ago. And so I like the name, the IT system lead technician, because it incorporates both of those two skill sets, both of those two jobs under one umbrella. But it is really a lot for one person to manage. So we also made a change to one of our technology support technicians. He changed his role to an IT systems / desktop support technician. The IT systems is going to be 50% of his job, and during that time, he'll work under Kurt to make changes in the server room, and that is an amazing benefit to us because it gives us the opportunity to address some security issues. Security is really hot on my mind, and I feel like we haven't had the opportunity to address it as well as we should with other priorities in the district, trying to get really just learning to happen. And so with him able to help Kurt, not only do we address some of those much needed security issues, but we also share information across a couple extra sets of hands, sets of eyes, which is important for us because if we were to lose anyone who holds all the information, those are fairly complex systems that it takes us some time to get caught up on. So that was another change that we made here in the technology department. And then we're also able to pick up another desktop support technician. So we added a staff member, and we will be moving from, we started 2021 school year with 5 staff members. We're going to be moving to 6. The addition is going to be 4 hours in the IT systems area and 4 hours in the desktop support area. So that combination really helps us address many of the priorities for the district and some of the security issues. It lets us share information across multiple people. And so that's a real benefit to the district. you can look through the staffing descriptions here. I don't know that I'm going to spend extra time there. And the supported devices, you have seen this before, with the exception of we have added quite a few devices. Right now, we're running with many Chromebooks. 1,500 of those will be going out to surplus, but currently are in our system and our devices we need to manage. And we also had some hotspots that we were managing this year, which was not difficult. The navigator position, our family navigator, dealt with the inventory of those items and got them into families' hands, which they did a fantastic job getting those devices to families that need them. But they also created some support needs that we hadn't anticipated. So that's something we had to address. I think we did a good job getting them working for kids. That, along with adding some new Chromebooks, really increased our need for labor. So we have all these new Chromebooks coming in. We've got to get them set up in, depending on what school you're going to, we have to build carts to get these things charging and secure. The carts are hard to build. They're a few hours of work each. We have about 60 of them across the elementary schools. I expect that the high school and the middle school will be going to one-to-one and not dealing with carts. They'll be having devices go directly home with kids. I'm trying to set up our support infrastructure that we can support any of those systems. So if they want to send them home or they want to use them in the school, we're ready to support either. So that's that piece. Let me bring up another, share another document here. I'm sharing that. Okay. So the device replacement that we were last year about this time, we ordered 900 Chromebooks. Those 900 Chromebooks we expected to receive by September. We did not receive them until October. That was that rush of trying to gather as many Chromebooks as we could together for students in September. Once we got them in October, we were able to deploy them relatively quickly with the help of some substitute bus drivers came and helped us with the nuts and bolts of getting it set up. They did a fantastic job and we were able to deploy those 900 Chromebooks in just a few weeks. This year we had purchased 1,500 Chromebooks. Thank you to the board for making that decision early so that we didn't run up against the end of summer and receiving stuff again. We have already received those devices. They're here in the high school, and we've got about 400 of them already out in schools. They're not currently being used. They're prepped, staged for September, but they are set up and ready to go. And we're planning to set up the rest of that batch after we get devices back. We're expecting to have some complex inventory issues as we're bringing back the Chromebooks, because we sent them out very quickly, and many of the devices that belong to schools went to kids that were not from that home school. And so we have to reconcile all those devices as they come back, and then we need to deal with the surplus of the 1,500 that we'll be replacing. So that's also something I'd like to call out, is the 900 we bought last year are additional Chromebooks that we would be using with kids. The 1,500 that we purchased this year are replacements for some that will end support with Google in June 2022. So it gives us the opportunity to get rid of some of our oldest 5- and 6-year-old equipment. So that is a great thing, but it leaves us with about 1,000 more devices that will be end of life in June 2022 that we need to replace, hopefully next year around this time. And then that will give us a foundation to start building a regular replacement schedule. And those numbers are a little bit up in the air because we don't know what's best for kids. There is an issue with supporting too many devices, but we want to make sure we have enough that with breakage or kids that forget them at home or something, we have that extra device for them to use available. I'd like to talk a little bit about the filtering on Chromebooks. That was something that we faced newly in September when we sent devices home with kids. We do have a filter, a firewall here at the district that filters any outgoing traffic, but we didn't have a way of protecting kids when they were using these devices at home. So we were able to purchase Goguardian. Again, thank you to the board and to the district for allowing us to make that change. I think it was very good for kids. I can show you really quick here. some of the information that we can gather from that. Let's see. Oh, sorry, give me just a second here. I got to get my right tab up. That's the one I want. That one. Okay, so this is Goguardian. I'll actually start with this slide. Goguardian is a device that runs on the Chromebooks, and any student that is logged in with a district Chromebook goes through this filtering service. This timeline is for January 2021. I picked January because it partially was kids. In part of the month, everybody was at home, and towards the end of the month, we brought a lot of our elementary kids back to not remote learning. They were actually here in person. But this graph, as you can see, has an unbelievable amount of traffic on it. So this is kids working from home. And I'll show you in a second what type of work this consists of. And you can tell here, looking at the green bar is just raw sites that kids are going to. And the red bar is sites that we have set in our filter as inappropriate. So pornography, shopping, social media, streaming media is probably a big piece of that. Those were blocked attempts. So kids did not get to those services, but they attempted to that many times in the month of January, 1,771 times. We also have flagged activity, which is something that the Goguardian product does to learn about the type of connections kids are making, and it warns us so we can then come back and block those categories should we decide they are truly inappropriate. But between the 24,000 flagged activity items and the 2,000 blocked items, really that's about 1.5% of the overall traffic. So our kids are focused. I wanted to point that out because almost all of the traffic that I see coming from this filter, I'll go back up here to my other slide, is school related and has been all year long. If I look at this graph from September, I look at it in May, we have almost the same scale. For our number one hit, we have YouTube. We use YouTube a lot for instruction. The kids use it for other things. You know, I don't know that any of that's inappropriate. We do have some filtering that is directly on YouTube that doesn't let the kids do anything too horrible, but that is a big part of our educational infrastructure. A lot of our teachers are recording videos, posting them to YouTube, or finding videos that are related to their curriculum and sharing that with kids, so they're able to do some instruction with YouTube. Number 2 is Classroom. Number 4 is Google Docs. We have Seesaw up there. Mead is up there, Edgenuity and OW Schools. Those are our online curriculums that are going through Seaview, Clever, Zern. Those are both math curriculums. So this is all great stuff. To me, this means that not only are the kids, here we're seeing the kids are using the system, here we're seeing they're using it appropriately, and it is focused on education. So I wanted to share that with you tonight because that not only shows some of the great work from our kids, but I think it also shows that our staff is really using the system effectively and pulling the kids in and keeping them engaged. The next piece that I'd like to talk a little bit about is training for staff. And we have had some great support this year from the instructional coaches. The instructional coaches are experienced teachers, and they have an excellent reputation with other teachers. And when they do training, technology or not, they really have an impact with folks. And I think for those of us in the technology department, it's difficult to have that same impact. So I want to point that out. I also would like to say that I hope that can continue in the future because I think they do an amazing job supporting teachers. Got one more I want to show you here for our Google domain. And that'll take me just a second to get. This is a set of graphs that is pulled from our Google domain to show you what's happening within that space. This first graph is the Google Classroom posts. And this again, this runs from December through June. So it's a pretty long scale, but you can see here that we're creating well over 1,000 posts per day. So this is your teachers out there creating the infrastructure for the kids to connect to and access their education. They're working incredibly hard in creating an incredible amount of content. One of the things about this content is it doesn't go stale. As long as we're not changing curriculum, this is stuff we can reuse next year. So it makes the teachers more productive and more efficient in their classroom. Another thing I'd like to point out is that our Google Drive files. Google Drive is where we're storing all of the student data and working with them to collaborate on documents. This is another amazing amount of content being created. You know, these are on a daily basis, 2,200 Google Docs added on a day. And you can see that trend is pretty much throughout. That's the 6-month period I've got highlighted there. Same kind of thing with Google Meets. You can see it sort of drops off in April, but remember, we're bringing kids back in person here. So this is supplemental at this point, and it is still being used. I think that's another really important piece, is that we're having some effective connectivity. And then this final graph is just showing the number of devices that we have connected on a daily basis. So this is our district Chromebooks with our kids out there connecting on a daily basis. This is again going December through June. And even now we have about 2,000 kids a day using our devices. So I thought that was another really important thing to share with you. I want to highlight that our staff is really working hard to make this stuff work for kids, and I think it is having a great impact. So I just wanted to point that out to folks. I would like to mention security procedures. Don't want to talk too in depth about what kind of things we changed, but as you know, we had some problems with malware a couple of years ago, and whenever I turn on the news, I'm hearing nothing but a lot of more bad stuff happening around. We hear about people paying these bad guys, and I just think it's going to keep increasing, and I'm really worried about it. So we've got a couple services that I openly mentioned that we have a data protection manager service. It's 2 servers that we run out at Dry Creek that pull data on a 4-hour interval from our servers here at the high school and keep them over there as backup. They are connected to the network, so they are vulnerable if somebody comes in with a malware type attack. We also are keeping data on removable drives, which is getting put, this is about a 3 to 5 day delay on that data, depending on what servers we're backing up. We have some servers that are so large in the amount of data that they have, it just takes that long to copy it. But those external drives are being kept in 4 different locations around the district, each secure, each available to us to pull that data from. And from those backup drives, we can completely restore all of our servers. We've done it twice now. We have that process down that we can do it pretty quickly. So I would like to just note that I feel we're pretty secure, but I also felt that way 2 years ago. And I guess you just don't know what you don't know until you get hit. So we're trying to focus on that. And it is a priority for us, but we do have other things that we're trying to deal with at the same time that take time. And with our recent changes in the technology department, I think we're going to be able to hit those goals, offer safe, reliable services to both students and staff, and to keep a secure environment should we run into any problems. We bumped some things to next year that I had hoped to do this year, but they are still on the agenda, and we hope to be able to address them through this coming year. So is there any questions for me?
Jared, I just want to tell you that my hands go up to you and the team. You guys have done some fabulous work. We wouldn't be able to do what we did the last 2 years without the staff. And I'm glad that you are getting some more help. And I do appreciate everything that you guys do on a daily basis. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Kelly. Okay, well, that's it for me. Oh, sorry.
I said ditto.
Yeah. Jared, do the teachers have their own ability to maintain their own classroom? And do they have something that they can like save their lesson plans or something on that's outside of the district main?
Yes. So there's a couple things that I can answer there. So one, all of that archive, we don't delete classes, we archive them. So when we are finished with a class at the end of the year, it goes into a holding pattern, and we can pull lessons directly from that archive class into a new class. So if you taught curriculum last year and you want to reuse a post that you created in September, you can just right click that in your archive class and say reuse post and connect it to whatever classes, groups of classes. So if you want to teach that first, second, third, and fourth period, you can click, I want to move it to first, second, third, and fourth period, go, it's in first, or it moves over, and that's maybe a little bit simplified, but it's much more easier for them to reuse the content than it is to create the original content. Yes, and we all do not have a district interface, but we do have some ways of pulling that data off of Google. It's called a takeout service. It's a little bit harder for us to use if we do that, but we can keep it that way if we want to store long term.
Okay, well, thank you. As always, you do a tremendous job for us, and we appreciate you so much.
And since Director Marks is not here, I just want to say that she really appreciates being on the committee. She'll share things with me, but she's really learned a lot being on the committee.
Well, thank you all for those comments. I would like to maybe finish up by saying that the support that I'm getting both from the district office and from the board, it's been a really difficult 2 years. I feel supported that whole time, but in this last couple months, being able to build up the department a little bit, have these new devices come in, it is a world of difference for us. And I really want to thank you for that support. It really makes a big difference for us and for the systems that we can set up. Thank you.
Good.
All right, if there's nothing further, we're going to head on over to Scott Harker for our public records report.
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm going to report on public records for the first 6 months of the year. I'm going to start off with the number of requests that we've had, and we've only had 3 requests. So what we lack in numbers, we made up for in the depth of the requests. Yeah. So we had one on some about transcripts, and that was actually pretty simple. But then we had one on some bus video, and so that gets to be kind of technical in terms of blurring kids' faces out and that type of thing. And then we had one on communication, and right now my assistant Alita is almost done going through nearly 10,000 emails related to this request. And so it can be a tedious process, but she's been doing a great job. And so in between, we've had a bunch of training on case laws, on legal updates, and records management. And so just kind of piggybacking on what Jared was talking about in terms of lessons and what we've got out there on servers, we really need to take a look at our retention, because what we've got right now is we have a tendency to not delete anything. And so that could be good or it could be bad, because if we don't have the records to give to somebody, then we got less to go through. But at the same time, where's the sweet spot in terms of what you keep and what you don't keep? So I'm going to be working with legal counsel in terms of recommendations, how we do things. And I'll be talking with Jared as well in terms of what we need to do as far as what we keep and how long do we keep it. So short report tonight. So any questions?
No.
All right, very good. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you, Scott. And so now we're going to go into the approval of establishing a budget for Monroe Fields. Marty, I assume you're going to walk us through that.
Yeah, I'm going to introduce the star of the show, Nolan Deuce, here in just a minute. But before Nolan takes over and shares the supporting documents for your decision making tonight, I just have to indicate that the Port Angeles Capital Advisory Committee is working as it's intended. And the subject of the material that you will see tonight, or the material you will see tonight, comes out of very in-depth conversations with that committee, particularly the community, and helping us to weigh through and make good decisions long-term for the Port Angeles School District. So with that, Nolan, I'll turn it over to you.
Good evening, and thanks for having me here. It's pretty exciting times. I think this is great. So after the May 13th meeting, where we went forward and brought on site workshop, We invited them to our last June 2nd PACAC meeting. And out of that, we had a discussion on just what we're looking for, what were the costs. We asked them to provide numbers for us. So after the meeting, and everybody, it was a great meeting. I think it went a half hour long because there was just so much energy in the room. But afterwards, the Superintendent Brewer asked me to come up and work with Site Workshop to price out 4 different scenarios that we could have there at Monroe Field and then go through them. I also got a spreadsheet from Sean Worthington, and I put in some numbers, and so we'll start from the top and go right down the list. So on the Monroe sports field, yep, there it is. So we've done advantages and disadvantages on a basic grass field plumbed for lights. So when we say plumbed for lights, the conduits are in the ground, but there are no lights. So this is a basic grass field. And the advantage is it's a low cost. There's not many other good advantages from that. Disadvantages is it's not a 12-month field with a basic grass field and drainage. We're not going to get a lot of playing time on it. It would be a play field more than a sports field. The utility cost and maintenance FTE would be similar to a sports field. And so when we talk about FTE for a sports field, if we're doing a grass sports field similar to Dry Creek, which is our other sports field, we're putting about 3/4 of an FTE towards that one site. That's how much work it takes. So between the top dressing, the fertilizing, the mowing, the everyday maintenance, it's just a ton of work. So it'd be similar to what a sports field would be. And then we'd need to give the field a rest. Once it starts raining, we're pulling people off the field because it's not going to last. The cost for that field is $417,968.75. In the attached information below, you'll see how the landscape architect breaks down all those costs. So I'm not going to go through them, but they are there for your information if you'd like. So the next field we looked at was a high quality grass field with lights. We're talking 8 inches of sand, drainage. It's going to have lights, so you're going to have sports in the evening, but it is a true sports field. This field's going to hold up. You're going to have 12-month field. And so, yeah, the advantages are it is a 12-month field, can be used for all sports, supports evening sports year round, can be converted to synthetic turf with the right prep and capital investment. It's not an inexpensive capital investment to do this. We were looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of $700,000 more later on if everything goes right. It could be higher than that to convert it to synthetic. And we still would need rest periods on this field. It wouldn't be that we could get people off of it and have one sport stop and another sport start, but the rest periods would be small. The disadvantages is this would be a sand field, so the cost of irrigation could exceed $40,000 per year. That was a number that the landscape architect provided to us. I told him that Dry Creek is really expensive and to keep it watered. One year we tried to cut down on the water and we had a hard time bringing Dry Creek back. So for sand fields, you just can't do that. Would require 0.75 FTE for maintenance, and the fertilizer and seed would be required several times per year. Again, it's just a lot of work. The cost to this field is $924,843.75. So the next field we're looking at is a synthetic turf with a shock pad. Shock pad is a pad underneath the field that allows for cushioned. So if people are playing football on it or a rougher sport and they fall, it is a shock pad, and you're giving the softness required for that sport. So it's fenced and it's plumbed for lights. Again, we don't have lights at this point, but the conduit is there. It's an investment later on to get the lights. So again, and this is a synthetic field. So huge advantages. That's a 12-month field, can be used for all sports. no rest period needed. You can have one sport end and the next day another sport can take over. No FTE needed. The maintenance on a synthetic field is very minimal, less than what we're doing now on our just the grass that's there. Could add lights when funds or grants are available, and utility costs are minimal. Again, no seed, no fertilizer, no water. The disadvantages are for this is there's no lights, so the field would only be usable during daytime hours. The cost for a synthetic field is $1,581,593.75. And the last option we got was a synthetic turf field with shock pad, lights and fencing, a perimeter walking path. So this is a 10-foot path all the way around the property, and a second basic field for practice. Advantages, again, similar to what the others were. 12-month field can be used for all sports. No rest period needed on the synthetic. There would be a small rest period on the practice field. Supports evening sports, a community walking path. There's a warm-up field. Disadvantages are this is the most expensive option. And basic field would require irrigation, fertilizer, and seed, and a partial FTE. So when we're talking about this too, we also went back and looked at other things that we've done with the capital. So other considerations, the safety vestibules for the elementary schools are complete. When I came to the board and gave you an estimate, I thought that we'd be doing more contracting and less in-district work. Because of COVID, we got more in-district work. And so my estimate was 50 to 75,000 each. The total for all five, the actual cost completed is $82,261.27. So way under budget. We did well there. The revenue for selling our old CSB when that happens would go into the capital projects fund. At this point, that revenue is not directed towards any project. And you could say the same with Fairview. As soon as we get the SCAP money from Fairview, the board could choose to sell the property and that revenue is not directed towards any project. So that's the four options. I would also like to pull up the sheet.
Hey, Nolan, can I add one
Yes.
piece that
Yes.
I forgot to put under other considerations? We also did sell the Mount Pleasant property for $127,000. That has been a capital source of revenue that is not accounted for in that as well.
So what I would also like to pull up the grass versus turf, if you can, please. So, so this was actually sent to us by Sean Worthington, and it really opened up my eyes to tell you the truth. We started looking at it, and it's apples to apples on the top and the bottom. It's a grass field on the top, and it shows the costs, and these are actually from the architect. There is one mistake. Under FTE, it's based at $45,000. That's what his guess was. I should have removed that and put the actual cost of an FTE. I did not catch that, but in the line item 2022, that is where the actual cost of 3/4 of a grounds FTE is at. So the numbers are correct. Just off to the side, the FTE is a little bit more than what he estimated it at.
What was that number? I can't see it.
Yeah, so the number for the 3/4 of an FTE is $41,750. And the benefits based off of that, and they are Teamsters, so there's the Teamsters benefits per 3/4 of an employee are $22,963. So we just, or he ran them out for 15 years, what it will look like with 2% appreciation. And so the total cost of a grass field with our labor, water, utilities, fertilizer, fuel, the buying a mower, and again, the mower at $55,000 is conservative. The last mower we bought was more like $80,000. So at the end of 15 years, the cost for that field is $2,869,344. So then next, if we go to the synthetic turf field and we look at it, and let me back up a little bit. So on the grass field, we're talking about electrical, parking and roads, clearing, demolition, everything that the mobilization, the contingency, they're apples to apples. We didn't leave out electrical on one and put electrical in the other. So these fields are based on the same assets. So if you look at the synthetic turf field and you look at the costs and then you run it out, we're going to need a new gator to sweep it and the fuel for it, basic O&M and utilities. And then at the replace the turf. So all the way to year 2035, bottom line, bottom box, 514, 626, it shows that that is a new replacement top to this field. So that's our second top. Even with that, the cost of this field is $2,707,371, $161,973 less than a grass field for the same 15 years. So this opened my eyes. This, yeah. So anyway.
Real quick, comparing apples to apples.
Yes.
This flight with, how much are lights?
So lights for a field are about $350,000 plus your contingencies up or down about 15%.
Is that included in this?
The contingencies are included in this, both of them.
Okay, thanks.
Both of these have lights.
Okay.
Wait a minute. This field has lights, Nolan?
So this was just the comparison.
This is just a comparison between grass and artificial.
This is not the field that we talked about earlier.
Correct.
But we had to do apples to apples to show just what we're getting.
Nolan, did you say the lights were 350,000?
Yes. Yep. And if you remember Civic Field, that, yeah, they were quite a bit more than that at Civic. So it's a smaller venue at Monroe.
Okay, so go ahead, Nolan.
Can I?
Yeah, and those are numbers that the landscape architect provided us that we should be expecting to pay.
So I want to add a little to that, Nolan and President Metner, please. So I referenced that the committee, and Sean Worthington is a community committee member, and not just him, but other community members that really weighed into this discussion. It really, jolted me a little bit around, the conversation that we had. And it's truly the intent of the committee. These are community buildings. These are community fields. And so as questions were arising around, the thought process of going with a grass field versus a synthetic, and that's where Nolan and I were seated in the beginning of this conversation, because typically in education, our funds are so premium that we try to cut costs on the front end, but it really costs us on the back end. And so we do it for the right purpose. But as Sean and Steve and Tara and Mike were outlining the advantage, disadvantage, and we were kind of defending the position of let's do a grass field, because we want to be conservative and make sure that, we have a good product that way, and we don't want to, over commit the budget. And we were explaining that we operate off of pools of money. We operate in silos. We have a capital fund. We have program dollars, which are federal and state. We have basic education dollars. And we were trying to justify why we could not afford synthetic. It came to then the comment in the room, and I can't remember who said it. The community doesn't care about that. The community cares about the bottom line. They don't care about the silos of money that we have to try to operate under. And that was a really important moment in time for me. That's my life, is managing these silos of dollars. But in the end, the community expects a quality product, and a good investment long-term for our community. And, you know, quite frankly, they may not care that we have to manage different pools of money to make this work. So that was aha moment number one. Aha moment number two was when this cost comparison was penciled out, and a synthetic field by way of our architect indicates that you have an 8-year guarantee on a synthetic field, but if you can't take care of it, you could get upwards of 15 years out of it, right? And so when the second comparison includes the replacement of the field after 15 years, we're saving nearly 6 figures a year after that. So well after you and well after me and well after Nolan, we're making an investment that the future leaders of the Port Angeles School District will not have to continue to struggle with the challenges around BEA dollars and operational dollars. Yes, it's more money up front, but in the long haul, it really, you know, pencils out and actually saves future generation, you know, taxpayers money and leaders within our system. So those were the two aha moments that really kind of shook me. I'm a very, I think the board of 5 knows me pretty well. I'm fairly conservative as it relates to finances. After us, having a very detailed conversation with the PACAC and also studying the numbers, I think it makes good sense for us to look at a different option rather than just grass fields. This evening, my recommendation for the board consideration will be option 3, which is, the synthetic field with a shock pad and also a fence and plumbed for lights. I believe the lights, and Director Kelly referencing the lights, I believe if we build it, they will come. There are grants out there that, we can find partner agencies and partner nonprofits in our system to help us obtain lights that, could make this, a year-round day and evening complex that's much needed by those in the Port Angeles community, but primarily or most importantly on the east side of town. So that's what I wanted to add prior to conversation. Thank you, President Mether.
Thank you, Superintendent Brewer. I would like to, before the board really starts delving into these questions, I would like to ask if anybody has some community comment around the Monroe Field project. If there's questions are sent in the Q&A or in the chat to Carmen, and Carmen can share them out for us.
There are none at this time, but I'll keep you posted if any do come in.
Okay, please do. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the board, and I'll speak on this last, I think. And maybe, well, Sandy, did you want to add anything? You were at the PACAC as was I. Do you have anything you wanted to sort of start us off with there?
No, I tell you, I was really impressed with the conversation that we have been having in all those meetings. That community input is really important. I really will go with, because I don't have children, I don't use the field myself, but I listen to what people say. And from all that I'm hearing, the third choice would probably be the best for right now. I think we can find the money to do it. And looking at what Nolan just showed us, that comparison is really interesting and positive, I think, to help us.
I agree. Anyone else want to pipe in? Cindy, Jacob, Katie? No, anyone?
Yeah, I just was waiting for the other two to go. Go ahead,
I was
Katie.
doing the same thing. Go ahead.
I was too.
Okay, I'll just specifically call on. I'm going to call on Katie.
You call on us.
Katie, I'm calling on you first.
Okay, thank you. I I am all about turf, and the reason I'm all about turf is for two reasons. And one is that I am concerned about water costs, and I'm not interested in watering a field. Okay. And the second reason that I'm interested in turf is that so many schools are converting to turf that we need something for our athletes to practice on so that when they go to other schools, they have the ability to have, you know, that competitive edge, right? So it's you know, it would put us behind in certain areas if we didn't have some turf to practice on for our athletes. So my preference, of course, is number 3. I'm very open to number 4 with the idea that number 3 is completely locked out to the community. And number 4 has a, it sounds like it has some space for the community to utilize when the field is not, you know, and so I didn't quite understand if number 3 could be developed into number 4 completely. Like we only talked about the lights, but number 3 and 4 have other things that are different. I'm also worried about putting off any costs. I don't really feel like putting things off saves us money right now. Things are just, you know, inflation, costs of things are just going up so much that do you invest in the whole thing right now and actually save money, or is this, you know, something where you can add it later? No one can actually answer that, but I really appreciate the turf versus grass, because that was exactly my reaction when I saw that we were doing grass, is that I didn't have any, I didn't really feel that it was any cheaper to do grass. So thank you very much. I'm excited. Very cool.
Okay, thank you, Katie. Jacob.
Just one quick question before I start. Do we currently have like a need for or a conflict with night sports where we would need lights yet?
Yeah, so on our fields at the high school practice field, we don't have the ability to have practices late. Football obviously runs into October, and at that point in time, the littler kids that are trying to get on our fields just can't do it with the high school football teams. So having the ability to have lights would add extra time all year round for the sports teams.
Okay. Well, just comparing the two, you just look a little ways into the future, and grass doesn't make sense. I mean, I love playing on grass, but not only does $40,000 a year for water expensive, but I mean, it could get worse. Our summers have been drier than ever. We don't know if they're going to get drier. And so we don't know not only about the access to water, but the cost of it. And is it going to, you know, what if we get to a point where, you know, we're like what Squim had, where they were, you know, where there was a bit of a drought, and then here we are just spraying water all summer while we're telling all of our community members, you know, hey, don't water your lawns. So, I mean, that's kind of out there, but mostly the cost of it, if you're looking at about $100,000 a year total to take care of something, and you're going to get a better quality field by having turf, that it seems like a no-brainer to go with the turf. And I think that we should put lights up immediately. I think option 3 with lights is what I would prefer. Okay.
Cindy, Director Kelly.
I'm just going to comment on Jacob's comment regarding the water. So funny, because the PUD could get into water restrictions and they could tell us we can't water the fields. And I do go, thank you to the committee for offering number 3. I think it's a great option. And I would just tell you that Dry Creek has very much benefited from the school district for all the water they've used. And Noel and I have had many conversations, and I've lived through that whole field issue. So I would definitely go with number 3. I would like to have the lights, but I also think that having the community to have the options to help with some of this stuff might be a really good thing because they like to do that. And I also would like to really have a conversation with the neighbors in the trailer park about how they would feel about the lights, because we haven't kind of that's not really lit up at night. So that would be kind of, I'd like to make sure that the neighborhood's okay with the lights. I think that we need to add lights, but I think that it's something we can fundraise for. I do like Kate. I would like to have option 4, but I also think that we need to do 3, which is more conservative. And I really feel like Katie does. Our kids need the opportunity to participate on turf. And this is exactly what the community wants. So let's do what the community wants.
Okay, thank you. I am going to maybe throw a bit of a curveball, I guess, which is I really do feel like we need to go, when I add up all the costs that Nolan saved us on the vestibules, and I add in also the money of the Mount Pleasant property that we sold, Mount Pleasant, right? Yeah. That's almost $400,000. No, it's 411. If I'm doing my maths right, which I'm not great, but $421,000 is what that savings and selling adds up to. I feel like I want number 4. And the reason I want number 4 is because I do travel to a lot of different areas, and having a side practice field really makes an enormous difference. That could be a place that's running little kids things. And if it dries out, it dries out. But it is a place for teams that can be warming up, and having a walking path around is really great for the community on this side of the planet. So yeah, I will go along with 3, but honestly, if I were thinking about what really a field can bring to a community, it's number 4. And I'd like to see if at least number 4 in its entirety, and just with the plumbing for the lights. I want the track and I want the side practice field. So that is not an option I see on here. But if I'm talking about this is just me, what I would like, that's the one I would think would be the most useful.
That would be about 2 million, roughly.
Is the side field, is that fenced and lighted? What's the side field look like? Because one of the things that is happening right now in town is that these fields that are next to the skate park, dream park area are getting converted into a pump track. And this is very exciting. This is a huge asset to our town for our kids. The pump tracks are amazing. I've experienced one myself. It's great. But we're losing some little kicker fields there, right? And the little kicker fields, when they proposed the pump track in there, basically said that, well, don't worry, because school district's putting in a field over in Monroe that you can use for little kickers, right? So what is the side field available to little kickers, and does it have lights? Is it fenced? Like, how does that work? I can't quite get my head wrapped around all of it. And maybe I don't need this detail right now because we just need a budget. But yeah, I'm with Sarah. So
and with all due respect, like I get it. Like, I could be right there with the board for the 4th option, but we have to stay focused on the end game here. And with the construction cost, and somebody referenced that around the cost of the lights, and it could be less expensive to do it now than to wait. Let's think about the end game here, which is Stevens Middle School and the Stephen Athletic Complex.
Yes.
So this is a board decision, and you have to own your decision with the community. But we are all, the 5 of you and myself and Kira, responsible to complete the Stevens project. And that is the priority 1. And so ultimately, this is a board decision, but I highly advise the team to consider looking at a synthetic field, and let's build into it. That's the concept of, the navigator concept. If we build that concept, it will come. Look at what's happened with our navigator concept. Same thing here at a turf field. Community partners come to the table. Nolan and I have had informal conversations around the natural slope out there. What if we were to be able to take that natural slope and create a seating area that's on a grass side field? I mean, we could do some pretty cool things within that budget. Although I am excited as well, I really want to caution us to stay focused on, we don't know what the construction market's going to do over the next 5 to 7 years. And our end game is to be, or it has to be, the classrooms and the athletic complex at Stevens.
And Marty, I agree with you. And I think that you have come so far. Yay. But I do. And I'm thinking if we do flatten that whole area, right? The whole area we're standing on looking out over, if we flatten that whole area, right? Is that possible? Because even just by flattening it, you build the turf, there's just going to be grass to the side of it anyway, correct?
So I'd like to answer that question.
Please.
So there will be grass, but there will also be boulders. There will also, it's not going to be a sports field. It'll be a rocky field that's got grass on it. Kids will get hurt if you're out there playing full speed sports. So unless you're going to take the time and dig it down, put in some sand, put in some grass, it's just is going to be like playing at the play field at Jefferson or Franklin. So
Okay.
yes, you can go out there and run, but if you're doing an organized sport, it's going to be not.
No, and I would never advocate it as an organized sports field. I'm just saying if the other team shows up, they could be, kicking the ball back and forth or throwing the ball back and forth and not too much peril. I also would think that side field idea would be a great community area where the community could come in and do a work party on that area if they really want it. So yes, number 3 is, I think, our best. It'll, I think, satisfy the most humans on the planet. So that's the budget.
Comments.
Pardon me, Cinda?
I said, thank you, Marty, for those comments. And the only thing I would remind the board is that we got a lot of school buildings that has to have some plumbing redone that we cannot. It's not going to take very long if that bill doesn't get passed with the lead in schools. It's coming. So we need to take some of that money and put some PECs in the schools.
Right, but I agree, Cindy, but this money is specifically for these things. So this is what we said the levy was going to be for, and that's what the levy needs to be.
If we talk about this extra money that we saved.
I think 4 is a nice option, but then we're going to run into the maintenance and water costs anyway. And then we're going to be, I think, cutting into these 15 and then, maybe 20-year savings that we were just talking about over time. And then we mitigate the gain of having a almost maintenance-free field. I think option 3 would be my pick for sure.
Okay,
Sarah,
well, yes.
I call for the question.
Okay, are we, is this, it's an action item. So
Yeah,
we have the,
Kelly would make a motion that we accept item, option number 3.
okay,
Director Wright will second that.
moved and seconded double time by Dr. Long and Director Wright. And so the question has been called. So I'm going with all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Sounds unanimous to me. You all get to head forward now with option 3, turf field.
Cool. I expect it done by next week.
It will definitely be done by the time your little guy is a little kicker. That much we.
Great. That's great.
So, okay. Thank you really for all, and Marty, I will be there as well, but seriously, we need to, and Nolan, you've done so much work on this. We need to pass on to the PACAC that this is their work.
Like, when we pull committees together, I actually want to hear what a committee has to say. And so this is a perfect example of why, a community committee is so very important. And Sarah, thank you for recognizing the fact this is like a huge leap of faith for me around finances and budget. And but I think it's the right decision for this community at this time. And we do have the capacity within our existing budget, as well as, you know, the sale of some other properties and land to make this work. So it's an exciting day. So thank you very much to the committee and to the board for your support. And we will make sure we don't disappoint you.
Terrific.
Don't doubt you. And Nolan, thank you for that presentation, because as soon as you started talking about the grass field, I started writing down and trying to figure out what the cost to maintain a grass field would be for the year based on what you said. And I was about 3/4 of the way writing it down, and then you just put that apples to apples comparison completely drawn out. And so I didn't need any of my stuff.
And FYI, the PUD raises their water rates and electric rates 3% every year.
Right.
Yeah. And it's an environmentally sound choice as well. It's all across the board. It's a winner. So that's great. We're moving on, and we're going to go to 9.02. Now we're going to approve the approval of the contract renewal with Sodexo. Excuse me. So do I have a motion?
So moved by Director Kelly.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded by Director Wright. Do we have any discussion around this? Everybody understand what this is in
Yes.
reference?
Yes.
Okay. Any discussion?
They're a great partner.
They are.
Okay.
Katie, did you
Not hearing-
second?
Pardon me?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so with that, we'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Excellent. So that's going to take us to 9.03, which is approval of the first reading of policy 2165, home or hospital instruction.
Dr.
Okay.
Long, 2165.
I move a motion to approve.
Director Wright will second that.
Moved by Director Mark, seconded by Director Wright. Any discussion around that?
I am struggling to understand why we can't put together a policy that doesn't incorporate like just a hybrid model, right? So like, you know, hospital or home instruction versus hybrid, you know, we're kind of getting into that, like we've transitioned here. And so I don't know. I think that there's some room to grow there. That's my discussion point. That's all.
Katie, can you talk to me later about that? So I get the concept, I guess.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay. So as this is a first reading, I will call for all in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Okay, that passes as a first reading, which is going to take me to 9.04. Approval of the adoption of the first reading of policy 4217, effective communication.
Director Kelly moves policy 4217.
Director Wright will second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Excellent. Moves us on to 9.05, approval to retire PASD policy 4050, endorsement of educational materials. Okay,
I'll just make a comment. The reason why we're doing this is because there's a different policy that's coming forward, and it's 4050, but it's data sharing with the tribe. So there's not really much that this does. And WASA
Okay.
doesn't have this policy.
okay, and do we know how long till that new policy is coming in?
We're working on it in the policy committee.
Okay. So with that, do I have a motion?
So moved by Director Kelly.
Seconded by Director Wright.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Abstentions of oppositions. I think everybody was, okay. I'm going to move on to 9.06, which is approval of the first reading of policy 2410, high school graduation requirements.
Director Kelly makes a motion to approve policy 2410.
Director Wright will second.
Moved and seconded. Do we have any discussion? Any discussion? Okay, with that, I will call for the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sounds unanimous to me. We'll carry on. We're just cooking through here. 9.07, approval of the first reading of policy 6511, safety program to staff safety. Is this
Director
just,
Wright will move to approve the policy 6511.
Director Marks seconds.
so as far as I can tell, this is just a name change? Is that correct, Cindy?
I don't have it in front of me and it's not showing, but
I thought this was, go ahead, sorry.
oh no, I think it changed some content, but why can't we have just called it staff safety program instead of safety program to staff safety? I guess I didn't catch that during the policy committee, but
Yeah.
The policy is called staff safety. I'm looking at the policy.
okay.
I have a comment when we're ready.
We're always ready. Go, Katie.
My comment is that I tripped up on the part that said Department of Labor. And I didn't know if that was the Washington State Department of L&I, which Labor and Industry, or if it was the U.S. Department of Labor. I assume it's the U.S. Department of Labor since it refers to OSHA and such. So I'm wondering if we can add the U.S. to it.
The only discrepancy I would have with
Federal.
what was that, Sandy?
OSHA is federal.
Yes.
Right.
So that's why I said, can we just add US, or do we want to keep it vague? I don't know.
Well, the only legal reference in this is to the Washington Industrial Safety and Health Act. That's the only legal reference in this policy.
Okay.
Excuse me.
So is it state or federal that we're trying to reference when we say Department of Labor?
Well, I think that should be
I
looked
would
into.
think it'd be state, wouldn't it? Because we're talking about employees.
Yeah, and the legal reference of 49.17 RCW Washington Industrial Safety and Health is the reference.
I mean, it would make sense, being a state-funded institution, that this is going to be State Department of Labor and Industries.
Okay, so let's just verify that before it comes back for its second reading.
Mhm.
That sound all right?
Yes, we can.
Are we
Okay,
gonna have discussion?
please.
Have you called? I mean, is it time
Yes,
for?
we're discussing as haven't we made a motion?
Yes, I made a motion.
Okay,
Okay.
so it's been moved and seconded. So yes, discussion is now, Sandy.
Okay, I don't know if this is the place to bring this up. And Marty, you can tell me, or Nolan, or anyone. But as far as safety of staff is concerned, I'm also concerned about safety of the board and our environment in the school board meeting that we're getting ready to go back into the public to have our meetings in July. I have asked for, and I would like to hear what the board has to say about having a second door put in the school board room, someplace up where our table is, second door to the hallway. If you remember, in the old building, we had 3 doors in the boardroom. We had a door that would go straight outside. We had a door that would go kind of like the location of the only door we have now, which is in the back of the boardroom. And then we had a door by the board tables. And more than one time, we had to get up and leave the tables, if you recall, and go into the superintendent's office because of some unruly folks. And I would like to make sure that we have a second door put into the boardroom.
Hey,
And I'd
Sam,
like to hear what the board has to say about that for a
Sam,
safety.
someone gets unruly with
As-
you, I
as
will get
speed
you out of
patch.
there. If I have to, I'll put a second door in that.
I appreciate that,
Throughout my
Jake.
secret service. Absolutely. I'll have the Eagle.
Well, you haven't been with us long enough to see some of the things that have happened in the past 4 or 5 years. When people get really unruly and there's no way to get out from behind a table. I recall Stevens, that happened at Stevens. And it also happened during the strike issues with the paras and also with the teachers. So I really believe just for safety, we need to have another door that's by our table that will go out into the hall. And so I know, Jake, you'll take care of us, but when 80 paras start storming the front of the room and there's no way to get out, which is what we had to do in a meeting, I don't feel comfortable with that anymore. I got a big push from behind, and I've never felt comfortable since then.
Okay. Just grab my back pocket. Hold on.
What I think that Sandy is a very valid concern, and I do I'm not sure that it fits in this policy, but I think that we going forward, I think is valid. And I think that that's something that we should have a discussion, even if just Nolan and Superintendent Brewer can tell us if it's a possibility and how much it was going to cost. I think that's totally worth our time, but not in regards to this particular policy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's fine. I just couldn't figure out when to bring that up. So safety was my keyword.
I like it. Okay. So Superintendent Brewer, I see you writing. I imagine you've gotten that concern written down and will direct us on what would be the best way to have that discussion. But for now, we're going to go on to this particular policy, and we have a motion, a second. Does anybody have any other discussion about that? Okay, so with that, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Okay, sounds unanimous to me.
And I will bring back at the second reading, we will bring back clarification on labor and industry.
Perfect. Okay, so that will take us to 9.08, which is approval of the first reading of policy 6620, special transportation.
Director Kelly makes a motion to approve policy 6620.
After long seconds.
All right, moved and seconded. Any discussion around this? No? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. All right, that's going to take us 9.09, approval of the first reading of policy 6630, driver training and responsibility. Do I have a motion?
Director Marks motions to approve.
Director Kelly seconds.
Okay. Do we have any discussion around this?
I just learned that the bus drivers are actually in charge when they take them on like athletic events or special events. They're in charge over the teachers or coaches. So that was interesting.
The bus is like their classroom. You're absolutely right. And they have final say about what the behavior is and
Captain on the ship.
exactly. And I literally have no idea how one school bus driver maintains order over all those children. I said that would be my seventh circle right there, would be coming back as a school bus driver in kindergarten.
Yeah.
Anyway, but so with that, not apropos of anything, do we have any other discussion? All right, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Opposed, abstentions? Sounds unanimous to me. Well, that's going to take us down to 10.01, which is community comments on non-agenda items.
President Methner, we do have Casey Dietz who would like to address the board regarding Monroe Sports Field. Are we able to do that at this time?
Absolutely.
Great, thank you. All right, I will unmute Casey here. All right.
Hello?
You should be able to. You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Can everybody hear me?
Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, I just wanted to take a second to share my excitement on the decision for the Monroe sports fields. I the head baseball coach for the high school, and I'm so excited to share the news with our kids that we're going to be, investing in the turf option. And I think that it's a great investment for our community and for our kids. It's I can't wait to see the excitement and the pride that the kids are going to have in our facilities, in our school district, and our community. And so as far as the lights and what we can do to help as a community, I know that I'm a very small piece of the puzzle as the baseball program, but collectively as an athletic program for the high school and youth programs as well, just point us in a direction and allow us to help in any way that we can. And I'm more than willing to do so.
Well, thank you very much, Coach. We're all excited too. So we look forward to working with your program and working with all these kiddos. All right. Were there any other comments?
Not at this time. Thank you, President Methner.
Okay. So that will take us on to Board of Directors comments. And this is rather sad that we have no children to call on. I believe they're all at their sort of pseudo prom tonight. So I hope they're enjoying themselves. I was gonna chaperone, but then I guess I have other responsibilities. So here I am, but I am going to open up then to the Board of Directors. Let's start tonight with Cindy. I seem to always call on Cindy last, but she's the first person I see.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I've been attending the OSPI Office of Native Education subcommittee meetings. We have lots of different 6 or 7 different subcommittees that we're working on, lots of different things. I attended the tribal STEC meetings, which is tribal compact schools. I attended the DNR Encumbered Lands meeting, a policy committee meeting, I've been attending the WASDA COVID-19 weekly meetings. Had the pleasure of going to the Lower Alwa Tribe graduation parade, which was fabulous. I attended a basketball game at Lake Stevens to watch my granddaughter. And it was really sad. Somebody on their team got COVID, so they didn't get to have a very long season, but anyway. And then I attended the WASDA Equity Committee meeting, the Washington State Native American Advisory Committee meeting this week. We had Indian tacos at the Point Angeles High School garden yesterday, which was fabulous. Jonathan made his Indian tacos for the end of the year. I attended the PA School District Student of the Month Assembly yesterday, a ceremony event that was fabulous by everybody. And it was great to be in person. And I've attended 2 of the Western Washington University students SIT presentations. They're students, teachers that are doing sovereignty curriculum. And so they've had to create presentations. And so it's been really great. Many people have been invited to witness and to provide comments to the teachers. They're doing some fabulous work. And then I attended the WASDA nominee committee meeting. So we'll be voting soon on some new leadership within WASDA. We'll be interviewing in a couple weeks.
Okay, thank you. Director Wright.
I'm going to pass this week.
All right. Let's go with Director Marks.
Thank you, Sarah. I have been attending athletic events and let's see, we did the Lincoln Center the other day for the students of the month. That was really great. Thank you for Sarah for instigating that. I really appreciated being able to see all those kids and all those families celebrate the kids. What a great way to kind of tie it off, right? Maybe it was a good idea to just have them all at once, right? So yeah.
Maybe we'll go forward. We'll do that going forward.
Right. I don't really know. So other than that, I just have no comment. The athletic events, I can't say enough about all extracurricular activities right now. They really elevate the level of mental health in their kids. And so when kids have the opportunity to engage, it brings them up, and I can see it. It's not just athletics, it's just everything. So getting any of these programs and activities going is just super important for our kids right now. So I'm super fortunate to be able to attend some of them. So thanks, that's all.
Excellent. Dr. Long, what do you have to share?
Well, I really enjoyed being with the tribe last week, watching the parade. I thought it was a wonderful tribute to Jamie Valdez. It was amazing. She is an amazing woman, and what she's done for our school district is it's without peer. And I always love to hear the drumming. That was really not good for me. I mean, was nice and good for me to be able to spend some time. There's something very soothing about that for me personally, for my mental health. And enjoyed being with the kids and their parents and the principals yesterday. It's nice to start seeing some real people and real faces. And the kids seemed really excited. Really waiting for tomorrow. Tomorrow's the biggie. And I want to tell everybody who hasn't been to graduation, which should be Cte and Jacob, it's cold out there. Bring a coat. It's really. Cindy always brings hand warmers, and don't scoff at that, because I always use the hand warmers, and it is really cold. So bring a coat. And I'm looking forward to it. And to next week. All the activities coming up in the next few days are exciting and fun to do it in person again.
Yeah, we're going to spend a lot of time together over the next week. So
yeah, we are, and that's good.
Okay. So I'll go next.
Do you bring hand warmers for everyone, or do I need to cover up?
She brings them for everyone.
Yes, she does.
Okay.
Now the pressure's on, Director Kelly. They're all expecting them. It's good to have your own gloves to tuck those
They're
in.
all ready already.
Oh, yay. That's great. Okay, so I got to go with the PACAC and Superintendent Brewer to meet with Derek Kilmer to sort of look over everything, and that was exciting. And I think we got our points across pretty well, and he's always so receptive. He's just really a big proponent of public schools. So, and then I did PACAC meetings. I went to the final gymnastics meet of the year. I had to stand outside, but I mean, I just love to see the kids doing their stuff. Let's see, on the graduation parade on the Elwha was amazing. And as you said, I'll just reiterate, Jamie Valdez is going to be a really hard act to follow. I mean, and that's nationwide. That's not just little Port Angeles. Nationwide, she is going to be a hard act to follow. If I know Jamie at all, which I know her a little, this is not the last we've seen of Jamie Valdez. She loves everybody too much to just disappear. Let's see, I've done 2 vaccination clinics, one at Lincoln High School and one at Stevens yesterday. And at Stevens, we had 128 of our little cherubs got their second doses. So that's always exciting. It was very busy. Other than that, let's see, what else have I done? I did, Well, the student of the month yesterday, which I really have to shout out to Jenny. I don't know if you all know, Jenny is the one who put all those bags together, ordered all the food, the balloons.
Yes.
Really, it just, Jenny, you are, as always, our hero in making us look good. I mean, really, that's what I think that's Jenny's whole job, make the board look good. And she did it.
All Carmen's pictures too.
Pardon me?
And thank you,
Oh,
Carmen.
and Carmen taking pictures, absolutely. So I thank you for all of that. I'm very excited about the sports fields. And I've been working a lot on, believe this or not, I've been working a lot on setting up the senior party. I feel like I missed it last year, so I guess I'm just gonna do it this year. So I've been spending a lot of time at the high school doing that. So in addition to a lot of the other things I've been doing throughout the year with certain people. So that's all I've been up to. Superintendent Brewer, you're next.
All right, thank you. So I've had the pleasure and the opportunity to do many of the things that you've referenced in your reports. And so it's great to see our board out and engaged. At this time, it's really about summarizing the year and assessing, all that we've done. And in that, I have to start by saying thank you to the school board. This has been a really difficult year. And I appreciate your stable leadership, and it has been difficult. But, knowing that our board has stuck together on behalf of doing what's right for the community and the students, I certainly appreciate it. So thank you very much for your leadership. In roles of leadership, we don't get thanked and appreciated enough, but I'm most certainly very appreciative of you. Secondly, I have to reflect on the staff. Our staff this year, have worked tirelessly. I was on the radio on Tuesday, thanking everybody for the work. They have stepped up every level of this organization, from building leadership to bus drivers running double and triple routes, to para-eds, working at the heightened of the pandemic and, working in close proximity to, students, in early September, to teachers working double time, to, create both in-person and online experiences, to the tech department, to the maintenance department, to cabinet, and secretarial support, answering all the questions and the angry phone calls, and I'm certain I'm missing somebody, but the theme is here. We have had an incredible effort, and I could not be more proud, to work with, not lead, to work with this community and this team of educators. And when I say that, I mean everybody. Including, the board and everybody that works day to day with our district. I'm also very appreciative of our parents and empathetic with the struggles that many of our parents have had this year. They have stepped up and, in ways that many probably thought was not possible, but I appreciate that. I appreciate the fact that, I didn't know how it was going to work when we got in school. And, you got to keep your, back in the day, remember, it wasn't so long ago that when a child had a runny nose, they had to stay home for 10 days, or no, it was 14 days. I can't believe it. I cannot believe how supportive our community has been. And, through all of the turmoil and each, and the hardship at the parent level, and them, really doing what's right and helping us to stay in school and not sending sick children to school, which we've all done. At least I have as a parent, so it's a complete different experience this year. And so I'm very appreciative of that. So all in all, I am proud to be in Port Angeles. I'm proud to be with you. I'm proud to be with everybody that commits, to working with, around, and volunteering with the school district. And it all gets summed up in the next five days or so. The payoff is here. I'm excited for that, yeah, whatever it takes. Thank you, Cindy. But, you know, that from the parade to the graduation to Lincoln High graduation next week to all of the celebrations at the schools, the parades that will happen. I mean, this is the payoff. And so I really hope, thank you, Katie. Everybody's showing their whatever it takes pen. I got mine on too, whatever it takes, believe it. But, you know, this is our payoff. And I want, you know, each of you and every educator in our system to really enjoy these final few days. And then I want each of us to check out, you know, for a little bit of time. We've been working, and I said this on the radio, we've been working since March 14th. And there's been no break. Not for, you know, well, you know, somebody might say, well, teachers or paras, they get the summer off. They didn't, not last year. The anxiety around the pandemic, the work that they put in over the summer to prepare for the school year, you know, so, you know, we've reached that point. And, you know, everyone, including our board members, you need to take some time to recharge the battery, you know, because next year we'll do it all again, and you know, we'll be better for it. So just much appreciation, and really excited to celebrate the next few days with each of you and our staff, and enjoy, you know, our end of year celebration. So thank you.
Awesome. I totally agree. I'm going to need some sleepy times, but I do want to remind the board that the all district graduation parade is tomorrow. So please, the more people we can get out ringing bells for those little cherubs, the better. It's always an emotional time. This year has been emotional, but appreciate people who have come to the board meeting here to keep their fingers in and know what's happening. And with that, I think, people, that we just have the last thing is our items for our next agenda, and our meeting place and time, location. I think that might be an exciting development.
Yeah. And so one more piece for graduation tomorrow night. We did make, if you look at the new guidance that came out on May 26th for spectators, you know, we can have cohorts of people at graduation in clusters of 15. That makes a big difference in the seating arrangement up in Civic Field, or up in the covered space of Civic Field. So we went out and did some calculations today, meaning Jeff Clark and Nolan and myself. Actually, they did the calculations. I was there to make decisions. That's all I did. But you know, we found that if tomorrow night, you know, the weather doesn't cooperate, you know, with a significant downpour, our calculations run, we can fit our student graduates in the bleachers under the covered area. So we have that as a backup plan. That will only be a backup plan, but it's possible. And tomorrow at the practice, graduates will experience that, and they'll have kind of two practices to represent that accordingly. So I think that's a big development today. So even working up to the day before graduation, making decisions to make it better for our students. So with that being said, our next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, June 24th. It is a regular meeting at 7 p.m. On that date, we're going to cover the May financial report and final enrollment and projections. So I don't know how exciting that is, President Methner, but that is
No,
what
I
it
got
is.
confused. I thought maybe I'm already 2 weeks ahead of that. I
Yeah.
thought we were maybe, no, I'm.
We're not
And this meeting on June 24th will be remote. And then President Methner is referencing in July, we're going to move back into in-person board meetings.
It's great.
Excellent. Okay. Well, with that.
Wait. Now I can't remember what I was going to, wait.
Almost got it.
Oh, dadgummit.
Got it.
How embarrassing is that?
Well, dadgummit, it's just real embarrassing there.
Don't worry,
Tell
Sam.
us tomorrow night. How about tell us tomorrow night?
It's only recorded.
It's appropriate to senior moment.
Yeah, and it's senior week, so there you have.
Just a matter of public record now.
Okay, thank you. That's being really helpful. Now I really can't remember it. Okay, when I remember, I'll give a call to whoever I was going to talk to this
Write
morning.
it down and bring it tomorrow night.
I'll do it.
All right, with that, I will see you all tomorrow night.
Thank you, Sarah.
Board meeting out.
Night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.